Hey everyone, Douglas here, and welcome back to the MMT Macro Trader and this market recap. It's Friday, June 16th, 2023. And what a rally we have had this week. What a validation to the thesis, to the lens, to the understanding of MMT as applied to markets. It has been an incredible run. Listen, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, the rest of the economic world, from the Monetarist to the Austrians to the Neoclassicals, they were all calling for imminent recession. But MMT knew otherwise. We knew that interest rates actually increased interest income, increased demand. They heated up the economy. They were not an impediment to growth, but in fact would spur on growth. We knew that the Federal Reserve had it backwards and that interest income is finally exploding this market higher. There are a lot of dynamics going on in this market. Today we're going to cover, I think, the most important one, and really what the reason that I think we're finally going to get a bit of a pause here from this absolute moon launch that we have seen over the past few days. So that's what we're going to cover today. Make sure you get subscribed. Make sure you turn those notification bells on. Hit the like button. Let me know your thoughts, too, in the comments below. All that good stuff. I'd love to keep the conversation going down in the comments. But without any further ado, let's go ahead, get into what I want to cover, because what we've really seen over the last few days is just an explosion of options buying. I'm going to start here. We have, in terms of S&P call volume, fresh highs. We are seeing calls come in. We are seeing those options flows really lift this market higher. And one of the things that happens when you start getting out of the money options, out of the money calls, especially, out of the money above where the current strike price is, out of the money calls, dealers have to hedge for that. And that creates a hedging dynamic that propels markets higher, that helps markets pin to those higher prices. But we are seeing the growth of this in droves, and that is really changing the dynamics, the underlying dynamics of the hedging space, of the dealer hedging space in this market right now, and is definitely part of the reason why we're seeing the veracity of the growth that we have. I'll demonstrate this by pulling up some of the tools that we've recently developed that go along really nicely with the MMT understanding, the MMT lens, the other predictive tools that we have to understand where flows are driving this market. We have gamma exposure tools that we use at our disposal to see what this overall structure looks like. And you can see this massive build of total net positive gamma at the 4,400 level. This build has been there for a few days. And again, I'll show you kind of a before and after here, and what this does is almost a pool of liquidity that just drags price to this pin. And then when you look at the overall gamma exposure, you can see that we will likely, again, this is from yesterday, that we would likely top out right around 4,440 on the SPX cash market, which is exactly what ended up happening. So you get this pull to these peaks that is usually where you cap off at, and then you'll see a bit of a rejection at that price level, and then a kind of a sideways consolidation, a pinning at that level. That is the dynamics that work. Of course, the directional call needs to be because of the underlying structural flows. Only MMT is going to give you the right lens, the right understanding of what those flows are doing. They are the only framework for analysis that can give you an understanding of where those flows are actually headed. But once you can determine where those flows are headed, you can start using tools like gamma exposure from the dealers to understand where you might end up finding some sort of resistance at. Here's what's wild. Usually in an options expiration cycle, you will see the largest build stay put for the majority, if not the entirety, of an options expiration cycle, which is one month. It rarely pushes higher, rarely moves that pinning price higher. It usually takes options expiration at the third Friday of each week to go ahead and reset it. We've seen massive movement up the chain here. And I can demonstrate that by showing you some screen caps that I took just from on June 2nd, during the update that we did on June 2nd. We saw this thing move from 4,300 with a gamma exposure peak right around 4,300 all the way up to 4,400. What is this telling us? This is telling us that people have realized they've been on the wrong side of this trade and are quickly moving to the other side. And to catch up, they're using the options market to do that. The second thing that is happening, it is decimating the shorts. For the last year and a half, we have been in a market dynamic that has been overhedged, and those overhedged positions are starting to unroll, and they're not opening back up. So we're seeing this massive move higher. This is effectively a gamma squeeze, and it's a gamma squeeze that was all precipitated by the initial move of those fiscal flows just pounding this market higher, and it is absolutely taking off. The fuse has been lit, and we are seeing this thing push higher. Now, why do I think we are going to pause here? Because it is options expiration. What does that mean? That means that about a third of the overall, let me come back to this chart, about a third, maybe even more of the overall exposure here that needs to be hedged for, that the dealers are hedging for, is falling off the books. It's going to create a window of opportunity for volatility to spike, and if there's any underlying selling, it could catch for a little while. Now, listen, that is a short-term dynamic. Could we get a bit of a pause here, 2 to 5%? Absolutely. Depending on how the pause plays out, if it's a quick, 2 to 5% drop Monday through Wednesday, I think we immediately reverse and start going higher. Maybe it's a longer consolidation. Maybe it's a week or two of sideways chop. Waiting for those Vanna flows to come on in is the next wave of hedging finally hits and pushes prices higher ever so slowly. But one way or another, it's the underlying structural flows that are determining the direction, and it's the hedging dynamic that's determining the velocity or really the variance at which we're seeing that move take place. And that is why over the last few weeks we've been seeing markets absolutely explode higher. It was only a matter of time, and that is why we are seeing what we are seeing. And again, the key here is understanding where those underlying flows are, which is why for just a second here, I'm going to go ahead and plug my Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, just follow me there. Listen, I post in both places. I post updates on where the data is at, one way or another. Follow me in both. But one of the things I did is, I made this post all the way back. This is from all the way back at the beginning of this year. I was showing that we were seeing accelerating flows from the fiscal side. There's a knock-on effect when the fiscal flows hit. That leads into private sector saving. Part of that ends up recapitalizing the banks. Next, we're going to see the bank flows hit. And this is why I don't think we're even close to done with this rally. We're just going to continue to see ourselves move upwards here. Again, check me out on Twitter if you're not. But there's a receipt. We were looking at this. We were looking for this to play out at the beginning of this year. In fact, I even go further back at the end of last year, December 16th. This is exactly what I said would happen. To a T, we were going to start seeing that interest income play a pivotal role in growth. Spending is back online. That only adds fuel to the growth fire, especially in the finance sector, and we're seeing that play out. I have recently put a pinned tweet on my profile that goes over all the most important steps. Quite a few people go, "Hey, Doug, I get what you're saying here. I like it. I need to understand it in more depth. It's hard for me to do an entire primer, cover all the bases, but this is a great place to start. Anything that I've done that is of utmost importance, that's going to give you the best understanding of what it is that I'm trying to say, it's there on the pinned tweet. Check it out. MMT Macro Trader on Twitter as well. The link is always in the description below to my Twitter. Check it out. See what I have to say there. All the pieces put together in that tweet. I'm continuing to add to it as well. New stuff up there. Actually, check out the guide, the definitive guide to rates and MMT. Again, it all pieces together. This is exactly what you would expect. This is exactly what we were calling for at the end of last year, and we're finally seeing it play out. As you can tell, it's just an exciting time. I am excited to be an MMTer, to explain the lens by which you can understand markets through MMT. It's a great time to be an MMTer. We just continue to take the victory laps, and this week has been just another example of why MMT gets it and no one else does. So make sure you get subscribed. Make sure you turn those notification bells on so you don't miss any of these updates, and hit that like button if you like this video. And before I leave, also, by the way, tomorrow, if you're watching this on Monday or on Friday, tomorrow, Saturday morning, I'm hanging out with Steve Keen and Friends. My second round, Steve Keen and Friends. Prof. Steve Keen. Look him up on YouTube. Follow me. I'll be live there for 2 whole hours. So check it out. If you're watching this after the fact, go watch the video anyway. I'm sure I'm saying some really interesting things that you're going to want to hear. It's going to be a great, great discussion. We're going to get into a lot of detail on all the good stuff. None of that surface stuff. We're going to go deep. Check it out tomorrow. It's noon on Saturday. So yeah, check that out. Anyway, listen, that's all I've got. If you're an active trader, active investor, check it out. MMT Macro Trader on Patreon, patreon.com/MMT Macro Trader. That's where you're going to get twice weekly updates with all the tools that I have, all the analysis that I have, all the models that I have, the deep learning models, the Bayes models, all the predictive models, all the flows, all over there. If you're an active trader, active investor, patreon.com/MMT Macro Trader. That's all I have. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next week.